Hello everyone, Ben Coleman back with you here at the Reno Air Races 2019, the Valley of Speed. And tell you what, if you have not been to a Reno Air Race, get here. They're committed. Talked to Bobby Thompson yesterday, and they are committed at least through next year. So you never know, it's year to year, but we're going to keep it going. And there's somebody that I want to introduce you to that's been here for a few years. I don't know how many, but Mr. Pete Law. Pete?
Hi there, nice meeting you, nice to be able to talk to you. I've been here since, actually the first race I came to was here in 1966.
66. I was not in diapers, but I was 10 years old. If we can do quick math, I'm an old fella, but how many years you got under you, Pete?
Well, right now I'm 83 years old, and I first started working with Darrell Greenemeyer in October of 1964 on his Bearcat, and he ended up winning in 1965 and 66, 67, 68, 69.
You didn't have anything to do with that, did you?
Yeah, I was very involved with Darrell Greenemeyer and then went on to other things.
Well, Pete, I don't know if you remember Precious Metal. When I was a safety guy for Precious Metal, and whenever Tom Richard would have an issue, either carburation or whatever with that big Griffin, I said, "Where's Pete? What y'all call Pete? Where's Pete?" It was always Pete Law. I said, "Who's this Pete Law fella?" And I thought, this is a little bit overrated. I mean, talking about some guy that that looks like you're not going to be able to race unless you talk to Pete Law. I said, "Yeah, that's about it. That's the size of it." But after I saw your methodology and the way that it's obvious experience. Once I saw that, I get it.
Well, I'll tell you why I was into that. It was because I started at Lockheed in January of 1959 in the thermodynamics department of the company that was building F-104s and airliners. And eventually in July of 1961, I was stolen to go to the Lockheed Skunk Works, and I spent 40 years there before I retired. I got to work on all the neat airplanes like the A-12, the YF-12A, the SR-71, the 117, U-2, and F-22, and X-35, several airplanes for Lockheed. That's what I got to work on and do. Heat transfer and thermodynamics was just a study of heat and how it travels and how to cool things off and how to heat things up if they have to be, how to keep all the electronics alive and running, and the same with the pilots, or if they weren't piloted, to keep them running as a drone.
You knew Mr. Kelly, I'm sure, well.
Yes, I knew Kelly Johnson very well, and Ben Rich, who took over for him after that, and each of the presidents that took over. And when I retired, a gentleman that was president of Lockheed at the time was Jack Gordon, who was a very good friend of mine. So,
well, I know they all told me that Kelly Johnson. That's Mr. Kelly. Just called Mr. Kelly. But anyway, Kelly Johnson, bless his heart, he gave us. I noticed your Blackbird pen. You know a little bit about SR-71, but I don't want to digress too far because Pete, there's something that's very, very important, and we're kind of on our sunset of it. And Joe, I didn't mean to disregard you, but Joe, he's pretty good engine man, but we got to get him next interview. We're kind of on the sunset, and all this new stuff coming up, new technology, but there's one thing that can't be overlooked: getting the kids involved in this business. Because if we don't get the kids in, all this goes away. Tell us, and before we get into that, tell us a little bit about Dreadnought.
The Dreadnought is one of the airplanes that Bruce Boland and Bruce Boland is the other engineer that started with Darrell in 1964. He did aerodynamics and structures. I did internal systems, carburation, water injection to make things go faster, cool things better. Anyway, Dreadnought was one of the airplanes where we took a very big, large airplane engine from a C-124 transport, and we put it on the front of a British Sea Fury because it was big enough to handle the 4,500 horsepower that we were expecting to put out of this engine. So I helped the Sanders guys put this engine into this airplane. I helped the Chino Museum guys put the same engine in their Super Corsair, and I helped another guy named Lloyd Hamilton put one in another Sea Fury. So there were three 4360 powered airplanes. This is the only one that's left right now. But it's a British Sea Fury with an American engine, and it has won Reno 3 other times. Last year it won, and we're hoping it'll do well to this year. But I also got to work on Miss America, which is a P-51 that's going to be racing against this one here. And it's Voodoo and Strega and Dago Red and Miss Candace and a whole bunch of airplanes. I got to be able to do the carburation, the fuel systems, the cooling systems, and the injection into special fluids into them to make them go faster.
Well, Pete, you know, some people would say, well, that sounds like an awful lot of work, but I know you well enough now that that's really not work. It's kind of fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fun, especially you spend your time working on SR-71s and F-117s. So I'm still working right now. I'm a consulting engineer, and I'm still working at 83 because I love engineering. And kids, you can't believe how wonderful engineering is. For those guys who are young,
Yeah.
I help mentor the people where I'm working. When they come out of college, they don't know how the real aircraft industry works. So we have to get them indoctrinated into the way that you really do things when you're working on an airplane,
Yeah.
as opposed to going to school.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the mentoring of the young people who come in to work as engineers, letting them know how to do real engineering on real airplanes or spacecraft or rockets or missiles or whatever you want to work on. So that's what I'm doing.
Wow. Well, Pete, we're out of Central Florida. Lakeland is our kind of home base, and there's Central Florida Aerospace Academy, and they have developed the ACE program, Aerospace Center for Excellence.
Perfect.
They've got a high school there, and they've just, I think they're graduating their 100th private pilot out of high school. So if you had one word to tell all these volunteers to keep the youth guys and the gals, a lot of good women out there, to get them interested and keep them involved and don't get discouraged, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, persevere. You'll find out that you're having the time of your life when you get older, as long as you've persevered when you're young.
Wow. Okay, Pete. That's I know you've got a lot of people to talk to. You're a Man of the Year. What?
They call me Person of the Year because I've been here doing stuff on the unlimited airplanes and other classes since 1966. Every airplane that's won at Reno in this class I've been working with. So it's been a pleasure for me to put my talents to use that people can actually see fly. So engineers do things, but the guys that make all the airplanes work are the ones that work on them.
It's a team.
It's a team. You do engineering, you get to know the guys that fly the airplanes, you get to know the people that are working on them, and it's just a big group of people who each have their own special thing to contribute, and you start learning when you're young, and pretty soon you may be flying one of these things.
Wow. Well, Pete, I will always take pleasure whenever I'm here at Reno or anywhere where you are and say, okay, be careful, the law's here.
Yeah, thank you very much, you guys. Good luck to all the kids that are going to get into this because they'll really enjoy it.
I know they will. And thank you for your service and everything you do for the industry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
You're welcome.
And Joe, we'll get you next time, big guy. He just carries you around to make him look good, doesn't he?
Yes, he helps though. He helps.
Oh, no. All right, guys and gals, thank you again for your attention, and you just got to hear it straight from the law. And now the generator goes off. All right, what generator? Thank you. We'll see you next interview.